Hello, everyone. My name is Ray Stahl, and I'm the host today for the Digital Metrology Standards Consortium's second in our coffee chat series. Today, our presentation is Advanced MBD with QIF by Capvidia and Schneider Electronics. We will be addressing the topic. Could you advance the slide, please? We have a couple of housekeeping things we'd like to do, just to make sure you're aware of it. You'll have, during the presentation, you'll be in listen-only mode. So please, there's on the GoToWebinar control panel, there is questions. Please, as you have questions, enter those in. We will answer those in a Q&A section at the end of the presentation. You may send the questions at any time, so please do it, and if we can answer it short term, we will. And also, so you don't have to worry about taking notes, any attendees today for the presentation will automatically get a email from us that will have the entire video of today's meeting. So you will be able to get that within the next, I believe, 1 or 2 days. The email will come out. Today's speakers are Daniel Campbell and from Capvidia, and Marida Adhakar from Schneider Electronics. My apologies to you. And what we'd like to do is just do a quick poll as we before we get started, just to get a sense of where everybody is in the QIF journey. So I'm going to launch a poll. If you take a few minutes now and vote on where you are in the MBDF QIF journey, I'll give you a minute. And while we're doing that, I just want to remind you that next month we'll have the QIF MODIS chart and with MODIS charts by Renishaw, another aspect of the QIF opportunities, and you can find that on our QIFstandards.org under events. And that will be in June about the same time. I'll give you another 30 seconds and then we will close the poll and see where we are. And about 15 seconds. All right, I'm closing the poll. And here's the results. So we have a lot in the active investigating and running pilots. So very good. I think today's presentation will be excellent. At this point, I'm going to hand over to Daniel Campbell, who will start the presentation.
All right, thank you, Ray. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and get started. I'm presenting today with Dr. Narendra Adhakar from Schneider Electric, and we're going to talk a little bit about how Capvidia is providing some tools to Schneider to work with model-based definition using QIF. So a little bit about Capvidia, just as a background. We are in the business of CAD data translation, CAD data validation. For, especially right now, really focusing on transmitting semantic MBD information downstream for use in manufacturing and quality and so forth. We're big contributors to the QIF standard. We've been involved with QIF since before the term QIF even was in existence, actually. So it's a big part of who we are. So just getting into model-based definition and kind of what we see, here's a little bit of a perspective about what we at Capvidia see as kind of some of the value in model-based definition. I kind of see it in two sort of streams. One is a stream flowing from design down through manufacturing and measurement, and then the other stream is data flowing back upstream from measurement back to design. So in the downstream flow, typically the benefits, can be thought of in terms of just more structure in terms of process, sort of a more, using model-based definition means that you're using software to flow your manufacturing processes and your business processes. And so this means a more algorithmic approach to your process. And so, yeah, it's kind of more of a process-based approach rather than relying heavily on personnel as far as your process goes. And then once you have kind of a more structured approach to your manufacturing processes or your business processes, then it becomes very easy to start automating certain tasks. And so that's a very big time saver, obviously. And so that's kind of the flow from design down through measurement. The benefit that we see a lot that is kind of, I think, it's the second benefit that comes. I mean, a lot of the benefits in terms of process and automation are some of the things that you see first. But I think the bigger benefit is going to come in terms of data capture and using the data from your real parts and feeding that data back into design. If you think about metrology now, by and large, I mean, it's used to make pass and fail decisions. There's really not, there's a lot of effort put into gathering data about the actual parts that are created. And really, to a large extent, it's being wasted. And often for this reason, metrology or quality is not really viewed as a value-added activity in manufacturing. It's kind of a necessary evil that you have to spend some money on, but it's not viewed as something that provides value. But the future state with model-based definition is very different. I mean, we're capturing mountains and mountains of data related to our actual part. So let's use that. Let's use that data to add value to our enterprise. I mean, in reality, this is really what a lot of the talk about digital twin. I mean, this is really what it is. We have our design model, and then we have our actual models, and creating mappings between them. And so, in terms of the underpinnings of how you do that, a lot of it's with model-based definition. So those are kind of the streams that we see in terms of why model-based definition is important. I won't get a lot into this because I know this has been discussed a lot in some of the earlier webinars and so forth, but this is just kind of a description, a high-level description of the main application areas for QIF. We have sort of at the foundation, the model-based definition, our CAD data and our PMI, measurement planning information, the bill of characteristics, things like that. Resources is for storing information about your measurement equipment, like your CMMs and your calipers and so forth. Rules is sort of an advanced application area used for creating templates or defining what your best practices are for certain measurement tasks. We have DMS here, which DMS is not part of QIF, but it is linked to QIF. So maybe you'd be using DMS, or maybe you'd be using some proprietary CMM software, but sort of that idea of CMM programs definitely fits into the QIF wheel. And then finally, of course, we have results. So actual data results that are captured and associated back to the model-based definition, and then statistics so that you can process SPC and carry out statistical analysis on the results that you have. And so, if we look at kind of just kind of a quick look at current state versus the modern state with model-based definition, and just look at some of the tangible benefits of why model-based definition is important. So in the current state, we have a situation that's not unlike what we see here in this picture, where there is in this case, there's an actual, drawing that's printed out onto paper and pinned up next to the computer. Maybe that instead, in your situation, might be a 2D PDF that you're opening on another screen, but it's the same thing. And you have somebody who's looking at that drawing, interpreting what they see there in that very complex drawing, and then entering it manually into some software on the computer. So this is obviously far from being an ideal situation. I mean, it's a lot of manual transcription of the GD&T. So this opens up the door right away to translation errors, interpretation errors, on all of these complex callouts that we see there. It requires a very skilled CMM technician. It's not just anybody that could do data transcription like this. I mean, this is, you know, interpreting a drawing is a very, very difficult thing to do. The result, yeah, personnel and machine dependent. I mean, this is basically just meaning that the resulting, let's say CMM program in this case, that you would get from the same input, the same drawing, will change depending on who the person is who's doing, who's creating the program. So that's not sort of such a non-deterministic approach to CMM programming is not really an ideal thing in terms of manufacturing where repeatability is key. And then finally, very labor intensive. I mean, so it takes a very long time to do this. And yeah, frankly, it's a large, it's a big time sink, a big waste of time. And then on the other side, in terms of data collection, this can be a problem as well, because once you have somebody having to manually interpret this drawing and enter it into the CMM software, you lose your link, you lose your sort of chain of traceability back to your design model. And so now your data is not mapped back to that single source of truth, which might be your NX model or your Creo model or your CATIA model or your SolidWorks model or whatever it might be. So that's kind of the state of quality-related MBD at this point. And so this is what the MBD approach tries to sort of fix and tries to turn on its head. You know, first of all, it's just improvements in terms of the process. So transcription errors are eliminated because now we have PMI being imported by software and sort of loaded directly instead of having to be interpreted by a person. The design knowledge that's encoded into the model, into your native model, in the form of PMI, is really encoded and then read by software. So it is really kind of encoded rather than something that we're dependent on different personnel to try to interpret. So that means it's very repeatable. You know, for the same PMI that you input, you get the same exact program every time. So that's a key thing right there for manufacturing. And then finally, it frees up a lot of time. It frees up a lot of time from these skilled metrology engineers to be doing things that are more value-added activities rather than just entering data from a 2D PDF. And then finally, in terms of the availability of data, you know, using QIF and using model-based definition, it allows you to maintain the link from your native model, your design authority model, to your QIF derivative and then through your QIF results. And so you can keep that chain of traceability the whole way and keep, you know, sort of a mapping, keep an understanding of, you know, I have this PMI, this position annotation on my native model. I would like to know what all of the results are from all the measurements on all my various components for that specific position tolerance. Maintaining a mapping like that becomes possible, and that opens up a whole nother world in terms of analytics. So just to give kind of a general idea about a very standard and high-level sort of picture of a common workflow that that a lot of users are using in terms of model-based definition right now using QIF. So just to kind of walk through these stages. So we have here, we'll start off and we would have our native CAD. So this might be, like I said, I think in this image we're looking at a Creo parametric model, maybe it'd be an NX model, maybe it'd be an Inventor model, CATIA, so forth. So first, this model, we'd create a derivative model in the QIF format. And so now you have a QIF MBD model. This contains all your CAD data. It contains all your semantic PMI, and it's in the ISO QIF format. So it's an international standard, easily understood and readable by third-party software. So from here, one of the big things that a lot of people are doing is they're carrying out this task called ballooning. It's often called ballooning or bubbling the part. And in this, basically what happens at this stage is we add characteristic IDs to each of the measurands that need to be measured on this particular part. And they can get listed out kind of in a tabular form, like we see down here. So now this allows us to start to generate our control plan and determine what measurement devices will be used to measure and verify each of these characteristics on the model, and so forth. This opens up the door to step number 3, which is the generation of an Excel report. I mean, Excel is still probably the most common way for transmitting measurement requirements. I mean, in aerospace, we see the very common AS9102 form, which we see here. Like right here, we're looking at Form 3 of AS9102, which has the list of all the characteristics that need to be measured. In automotive, we'll see a lot of PPAP reports, but you know, often that's listed out in Excel, and that's a way of transmitting what the measurement requirements are and collecting the measurement requirements. Next, with QIF, we could do a CMM measurement. So in this case, we're looking at a CMM software where we have loaded up this QIF MBD model with all the PMI, generated an inspection program to verify the PMI that's on that model. And here we see a simulation of that CMM measurement, you know, measuring this blade here. And finally, once we're done, we can capture all of these results, whether they be from the Excel form or from a CMM measurement, and they would be exported to the QIF results format, which can be linked up to the model and mapped back to the QIF model. So we would see here our blade model, and then a set of results coming in, some run charts and so forth. So it's kind of a high-level summary of a QIF workflow using MBD. And at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Narendra, and he'll be able to give kind of a more specific look at specifically how Schneider is using QIF and has molded it specifically to their workflows.
Okay, so thank you, Daniel, for that information. So the first part of what Daniel has mentioned, I will just give the Schneider perspective onto that. So hello everyone, my name is Narendra Khadkar. I'm from Schneider Electric. So what is Schneider Electric? Let me give you the next slide. How to take a control. Okay. So Schneider Electric is a technology company. So we provide the solutions for the automation, and what we are in the energy efficiency and sustainability. We provide the solutions to the different businesses, and if you see, we are in the market of buildings, data centers, industry, and infrastructure. So we have a strong commitment for the innovation. So you can see the figures around. We are a 25 billion company, and we have more than 128,000 employees across the globe. We have 4 key centers, that is North America, China, West Europe, and rest of the world. And we have mainly two businesses: industrial automation and energy management. So this is briefly about Schneider Electric, and I will just give you the perspective of Schneider, how we are using the model-based definition. Our focus is on the digitalization, or to bring out the digital solution based on the principles of model-based definition. Our end objective is to ensure the value chain is connected, responsive, and predictive. So that is the end result that we would like to see. And we started our journey with QIF approximately 4 years back. And you will see I have a couple of demos to show you. So we have progressed a lot on that, and we currently launched 2 pilots in Schneider, and the plan is to deploy some of the solutions. So we are going in phase-wise manner. So I will show you in the next slide. So you have just seen in the previous slide from Daniel that we have a CAD native file, a CAD native model, and we have annotations at the beginning. And what we are trying to do with that is we try to incorporate some of the quality aspects that are required for the qualification of the parts. So we are incorporating all the inputs of that into the parameters of Creo itself. Then we know that each component has its own criticality within the product itself, and each key characteristics is also has some severity, given what is the function that that feature will give, or the dimension will give. So based on that, we derive some severities for each key characteristics, and based on that, we know what is a manufacturing technology, and based on that, we know what is the statistical model that we should use. So all these characteristics will be assigned again to the 3D CAD model. In our case, we use Creo environment. On top of that, we also try to embed all the other information that is driven by the technology of manufacturing. So there are certain limitations of the technology, so we try to impose that also onto the model itself. Also there are some kind of a specific situation, because our products are mostly in the power breaking scenario, so we need some kind of a surface treatments of the parts. So all the information that is necessary, we'll put it directly onto the model, so that the model has got all the necessary information, and then the journey of that will start. So we call as a native 3D MBD model. So once the model is ready, then we are ready to go for the next step. So what we do, we try to convert that model into the QIF file, which is ISO 23952 ISO standard. So we convert it to the QIF model, and as just before Daniel has shown the overview of the process, so we have slightly different approach at Schneider, because we have a different robust design methodology. So what we do, once the QIF model has been prepared, then we can see the QIF model directly onto the solutions that QIF Vidya provides, like MBD Vidya standalone. On that, we can see all the characteristics that are on the bill of characteristics, and we have all the combined state listed here. So here, if you can see on the screen, maybe we have segregated all the key characteristics function wise. So it's a function 1, 2, 3. So there are plenty of ways to do that combined state. So once that model is ready, then we try to go for the next step. So the next step for that is, along with the industrial experts, we try to assess the occurrence of that key characteristics, means how easy or difficult to manufacture one of the GD&T, for example, if there is a profile tolerance or position tolerance. Based on that process FMEA, we can derive some kind of a process criticality, and then based on the process criticality, we come to a stage where we know that for that key characteristics, how many samples needs to be measured. For example, maybe 5 samples or 25 samples. Based on the criticality, we decide, so that we try to optimize the efforts during the qualification process, like how many CMM parts needs to be measured. So all these things we try to analyze before, and then we try to optimize the efforts for the next phase. And in the next phase, the parts are manufactured. So in Schneider, mostly maybe 5% of the parts are manufactured within Schneider, which are very key and confidential, but 95% of the parts are manufactured with our suppliers. So we need to onboard suppliers also. So whatever solution we try to bring up, So that must be accepted by our suppliers, and they must try to play a key role on that. So once the parts are manufactured, then definitely what Daniel was mentioning, we try to program the CMM offline program, or we can say the model-based CMM program, so that the parts getting measured at supplier, the same program can be used at our facilities, so that there is no confusion of selecting the points or the point cloud. So we have a consistency of measurement, and there is no ambiguity what happens at supplier's end or at what happens at Schneider end. So there is a good consistency of the results. And once the part is qualified, or if it's not good, then rework can be done at supplier's place. And now with the thanks to the 3D viewer that is available with the MBD video, we can see the result by just clicking on the key characteristics or the surface feature. Immediately the pop-up window or the results can be seen, like the thermometers, where what are the real measurements, or we can see the process capability or process capability index, standard deviation, all the information is available. So this is the workflow that we customized that suits our robust design methodology. So just moving forward onto that, I have a quick demo to show you. So what we do, how the tool chain is seamlessly connected. So we start with model-based definition in Creo. Then you can see that the next phase for us is the CTOL. We use the 3D tolerance analysis tool, so which has a direct link to the Creo. So it's synchronized, and the bidirectional flow of the key characteristics or some of the characteristics can be pushed back to Creo also. So we maintain the digital thread along that. So if I just go quickly on to the maybe video, so it will be pretty fast. Okay, so this is what I just mentioned to you. Yeah, and then as I mentioned, so we do the 3D tolerance analysis. So we get the information here, what are the optimized GD&T we need, and we can push back all the information into back to Creo, so that we can enrich the 3D native file. So apart from CTOL or the 3D tolerance analysis, we have developed kind of an interface which manages the parameters. When we say parameters, it's all the key characteristics that define some kind of output for the product. We call as a functional condition. So imagine that we have kind of a trip function. If you are seen at your house, we have MCB, miniature circuit breaker, and when there is a short circuit or overload, it will trip the circuit. So we have identified kind of a trip position as the key character, as a functional condition, and we know how many parts are involved onto that, and what are the key characteristics are involved onto that, like GD&T, perpendicularity, whatever. And then we manage that in another interface that we call as a parameter manager. Once that is done, we know that what is the criticality, we know the severity, and we can find out what is the CPK to qualify that kind of a key characteristics or process capability, in other words. So once done, then until now the flow chain is seamlessly connected, so we can push front and back the information. It is not a problem. Once that phase is passed, then we take that MBD model, which is now enriched MBD model, and we can go for the downstream for the model-based CMM program. So we call as a CMM programming model-based, or it's offline CMM program directly from the model. You can see here, and once the program can be ready within minutes, so it takes hardly 2 minutes for this simple part, but we are tested on a couple of parts, so it could take maybe 5 maximum minutes of that, and we save a lot of time onto that. So it's a real productivity we can gain from the CMM programming itself. Once that is done, then we know that we have a point cloud. We can superimpose the point cloud, and we can go for the downstream. So here you can see the point cloud, which is unique, and then we can measure that points at supplier place or at Schneider or at any other facility, so which are transferable. So it's not a And then we come again back to MBD tool, but it is another function that we call as a component model-based component verification. It's kind of a plugin, you can say, within the environment itself. And here you can just click onto the surface or key characteristics. Then we immediately find out what is the process capability, long-term process capability or short-term process capability, what is the mean value, standard deviation. All the information is available at the fingertips. So it's pretty easy to take a decision directly here. So there are few ways to collect the information. One of the ways that Daniel was mentioning through the Excel import or export, but at Schneider we are trying to directly export the QIF file and importing the QIF file directly from the CMM measurement and importing into the MBD tool, so that we avoid the interface of Excel. But Excel is one of additional opportunity that we do have. So based on the supplier's capability, we can use whatever way is suitable. So there are a couple of other capabilities, but this is the workflow that you are looking at on the screen is mostly for the new parts. But we are working with CapVidia onto another workflow that will answer the need of the legacy part, the parts that are already there in, and how do we manage that parts, because the models are already built, and we are looking at another solution onto that, so that we avoid the change management efforts onto that. So this is briefly about the pilots that we conducted last year. And again, we are working also with some of the suppliers to see how we can leverage from that, and what are the other capabilities that supplier are looking at, because QIF is relatively new for some of the suppliers, and we are continuously collaborating with them, trying to understand their point of view and their pain points as well. So if I just move on to the next, I have some issue. Okay. So here I will try to give you the long-term view of Schneider. So anyways, whatever I have seen, whatever I have shown you, it's just a part of the complete program, like a 3D tolerance analysis, and we go until the verification. But we are working on how we manage the voice of customer. So we'll start the journey from voice of customer, but we are doing into the phases. So we are not launched all the end-to-end solution, but we started from, so we are divided into 2 or 3 steps. So that will also help us to manage our efforts onto that. So you know pretty much about design, build, and operate. So the value chain that I have shown you is until this, but now we are working on the requirement management and what happens when the part will go for the real production. So we'll each and every time we'll try to receive the parts from the supplier, and then we are trying to manage the parts once the parts has been sent by supplier. So there is a cloud-based solution or the web-based solution where we'll get directly the CPK, all the statistical information will be available for the batch, and then our intention is to try to take this information and inject back to the tools and try to see the capabilities of the functional conditions. So our intention is to close the loop, and that's what we started working around all those aspects. And then as you know that we call this as a digital thread. So we'll have a end-to-end seamless connections that can go from front to back and back to front, so whatever we say. So that is our vision for the long term. So there are a few aspects which are missing, like digital twin, and so that aspect has not been shown today, but yes, we are working on that aspect as well. So what we would like to achieve through the complete transformation is definitely we'll have a single source of truth. That is the first goal that we are looking at. So through model-based definition, we can achieve that. Then we'll have a seamless real-time data flow, because the data started flowing, and each value chain is understanding what is the information it is looking for, and it is available. So the information is available at the fingertip, and we are not losing any time gathering the information. So the flow is seamless. one of the important aspect for us is the criticality of each key characteristics or the component level also. Mastering the parameters is very important for us. What happens if there is a deviation in the batch? So whether we do accept the batch or not, and all our products are kind of safety products. So the human lives are at stake when we talk about the switch gear, circuit breakers. So for us, mastering the criticality of each parameter is very important, and our intention is to, through the single source of truth and seamless connection, we'll try to achieve we can master the criticality of each of the aspects that are necessary to manage. Then interoperability, for sure, that I just shown you the short video. So you have seen the interoperability, and we are working around also that what happens onto production and the early phase of the design also. So we started working on that this year. And most of the time, what happens if we try to keep the information into any office document like Word, Excel, PDF, this information is available, but it cannot be used very effectively. So then the traceability of parameters, we are not capitalizing on the knowledge that we gain from one of the projects. So it is always stays in the file. So I think with the digital approach, we'll have the traceability, and we can capitalize on the lessons learned, what are the know-how about that particular manufacturing technology, or the tolerances that we could achieve on with the certain manufacturing technology. We'll also master the know-how of that aspect. So that gives the long-term vision of Schneider. And just to conclude on this presentation, so what we are looking at Schneider is whatever we design, that we are building. So whatever design has been done for the component or product, we are really ensuring that whatever is designed, we are getting that as a manufactured product. And also through the functional conditions that I was talking about, when the customer will use, he will use at the full potential, whatever he has desired. Through the voice of customer, he gets the final outcome in the same line. So there are no surprises for him. Definitely for our design team and for all the valuation, it is a 3D digital experience, because we are moving from 2D to 3D world. So it definitely brings out the most prominent value on that. So we'll have the seamless real-time data management that I just spoke about, and interoperability of data is most important now with the Industry 4.0. We know that it is a key aspect to handle that information. So we'll have so many of data, and managing of that data is very critical. So definitely it will shorten the decision making process, because everything is available at the fingertip. The information is available. So there is no kind of a time delay to take a decision. Designer can communicate directly to the industrial or the quality people. So there is a value chain that will sustain the decision making process, and analytic throughput can be enhanced also. So what we are looking at is definitely it will help us to qualify the parts in short period of time, because mostly what happens, the supplier qualifies the part, then sends the first article inspection report to Schneider, and then we try to see whether it is aligned, we accept the part or not. So it takes time. Now through the digital connection, I think once he uploads, so we will try to get the information within few seconds. So it will also accelerate, and the offline CMM program or the model-based CMM program will definitely help to measure the same points that he is measuring, and the same points can be measured at any other location, so that there will be no chance or no opportunity for the ambiguity of or making an error in the qualification process. And the last but not least is reuse of the data model and information. I will just stress upon that, and it's really key important aspect for us also, because each year maybe 50,000, 60,000 parts we develop, and we gather so much of information, but how we can capitalize on that information is the most important aspect for us. And I think with the digital transformation, it will bring that value to us. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much for your attention. So if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Yes, there has been a few questions coming in the queue, and while we're answering them, if you would feel free to add any more additional questions, please do while we're in this Q&A section. So the first question is, how MBD from QIF and MBD from step AP242 and AP238 step and C are connected? Is there a need for additional translators?
Yeah, so QIF MBD is actually part of the same group within ISO as the step standards. TC184 SC4 is the group that governs STEP, and it also governs the QIF standard. They are different standards, and so right now a translator is needed to move between those two formats. But you know, a lot of the fundamentals between the two are very similar, and there's actually an effort going on within that body right now to create a mapping between the two data formats.
Okay, thank you. Here's the next question. Is a sampling inspection supported by QIF? And do you have an example of how the sampling rate is executed by CMM applications?
Yeah. Well, so one of the things here that I think comes into play is the idea of QIF rules, which is meant to address this. I guess, you know, looking at the idea of sampling rate, I guess is the term that made me think of rules. So with the sampling rate, you aren't exactly specifying, you know, this is precisely where you should be sampling, but instead you're just sort of giving some basic criteria that the operator would need to address. And that's the idea with QIF rules, would be to say that, you know, you need a minimum of so and so many points, or, you know, this is the sampling pattern sort of strategy, the sampling strategy that you should take. You know, take precisely this many points, take at least this many points, you know, things like that. So I don't know if maybe that answers the question.
Could also be in QIF plans, right? You could have your inspection plan defined, but QIF itself doesn't drive those numbers. That actually has to be generated from a process, right? We are a conduit of moving information, so the sample strategy would come either from some other source, a manufacturing engineer or something, but it would be in the QIF plans and rules section defining what those are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And then there are the CMM software tools that are out there that are able to use, you know, to read a QIF MBD and generate a QI or a CMM program. Narendra's been working with some of those tools. So Narendra, I don't know if you have any comments about, you know, what was your experience with using some of the metrology software tools in QIF?
Yeah, so indeed. So in fact, we started trying. So last year we tested a couple of tools around that. So there are plenty of capabilities available. So like having the plan ready, it is very much feasible with the tools itself. And we can feed in the information so that we also save the time there with the tools that we tested. So unfortunately, I don't have that demo here, but yes, we tested some of the capabilities around that, and it works really well.
So I think this is related. How are you getting your CMM inspection results into QIF?
So in fact, if I can take that point, so the capabilities that are offered by some of the vendors that we tested, one of them was kind of Origin, and they have that capability. Not only them, but there are few more players, and they have capability now with the plugin that all the data that can come directly as a QIF file, and then we can import directly onto the MBD video. So that workflow we already tested, and it works pretty well. So,
okay. Next question is, have any of your suppliers had difficulty implementing MBD on various CMM software platforms?
Yeah, in fact, it's a really good question on that. So we started working with some of the European suppliers. So we have floated a survey last year with almost close to 350 suppliers in the first phase, and we wanted to try check their level of knowledge about the QIF, because some of them are using step 242, or some of them are using 3D PDF. So there are different solutions available, but what we can say that the suppliers are getting willing, they are also willing to test that, because it is giving them the productivity from their perspective. So they are also willing, but yeah, it will take time. It is, I cannot say that okay, everybody is ready today to handle all this information. So that's how we phase out the strategies, like we are targeting region by region. So, and there are some resistance also sometimes we have seen, but once we explain them what are the real benefits out of that, they are understanding. But it will take time. It is not.
It's a journey.
Yeah, it's a journey. And any change, first of all, there will be always resistance for any change. So that we do see within the organization also. So it takes time, because there are designers who are from so many years they are using 2D drawing, and then suddenly one day we cannot tell them to change everything from 2D to 3D. So yeah, it's a journey.
Next question. As information density within the MBD source data increases, does it have a significant impact on QIF files, such as complex surfaces, assemblies, etc.?
No, we've never seen that to be a problem. Yeah, I don't think that's a problem.
Okay. Next question. Is it planned for QIF to be able to capture non-dimensional quality requirements? For example, if an assembly needs to have a high pot test, can the QIF framework be used to capture these results?
Yeah, in fact, I would like to answer that, Daniel. So indeed, it's a great question, because we do have, as I mentioned, we do have certain characteristics that that we need to manage that throughout the life of the part or product itself. And with the MBD Vidya tool itself, we developed kind of a small facility, I can say, a small tool or the plugin, I can say, and it try to fetch all the information that is kind of a proprietary information sometimes, or some of the information which is available as a standard itself. So we succeeded trying to capture all this information into the QIF model itself. So it's kind of a annotation, but yeah, we can manage that throughout the life of the part. Daniel, you want to add something?
Yeah, no, I think I think it's just a really good question, because it's easy when thinking about quality to think about dimensional quality, because it's kind of the biggest of the various domains of quality. But absolutely, I mean, QIF was designed to support all areas of quality. And actually, I mean, just some stuff I was dealing with earlier today is some workflows related to visual inspection using sort of robotic mounted camera systems, and doing visual inspection to check for certain types of defects and things like that. And it's all powered by QIF. So yeah, good question.
Okay. Next question. Can manufacturing information like used tools, current machine, feed rate be described using QIF? If yes, how is it related to the BOC and QIF results?
Yeah, Narendra, do you want to answer that one? I mean, I know you're doing some pretty, some very sophisticated bill of characteristics workflows.
Yes, so in fact, what we started doing or working maybe from beginning of this year is to try to consolidate some of the aspect onto the bill of characteristics. And once it is done, then we are tracking each phase. So when we work within Schneider, so we have different stakeholders, and this information on bill of characteristics or the information that is available, So they can also try to put their information onto that. It is not only the designer, but the value chain is facilitating onto that aspect also. So we have done kind of a testing around that, and I think our plan is by June or by July, I think we will try to work with some of the suppliers also with that, so whether they can see some value around that. Daniel, you want to complement something?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, I think shortly the answer is yes. I mean, a lot of the stuff that's being talked about in this question, a lot of the criteria is built into QIF. There are existing flags within QIF to set some of these things, but then there's even often there are company-specific things or specific the sort of aspects to a workflow that might be specific to a company like like Schneider or any other company, where they want to set certain flags on their bill of characteristics, and when you do things like that, you can use custom attributes within QIF that are defined strongly according to certain data types and so forth. So there's robust mechanisms for defining all kinds of information and attaching it to your bill of characteristics. So yeah, I mean, that's actually, I would say that's definitely one of the strengths of a QIF-based approach is being able to rigorously plan your bill of characteristics related activity.
Okay, our next question is, whom can I speak to with regarding getting CMM data from my specific CMM application into a QIF file?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think with general questions about QIF, I mean, I think emailing Mark Thomas, the director of the DMSC, is always a good thing because he's in touch with all the members of the DMSC, obviously, and if there's something that some technical question he doesn't know, I mean, he can sort of point you in the right direction. And then specifically about CMM data from different CMM applications, obviously, I think reaching out to that specific provider would be a good place to start. But there is a chance that some of the vendors, don't support QIF results yet.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you're at a dead end. I mean, there are ways that you can output data in other formats and then have it transformed, basically just translate that data into QIF results. So for example, just off the top of my head, DMO, DMS out. You can output results from most software into DMS out. And actually on the QIF GitHub page, there are scripts that can easily be used to translate DMO data into QIF, for example. And there are commercial tools which will translate that data into QIF as well. So yeah, I mean, I think that even if your particular vendor doesn't support QIF results right now, I think it's still pretty easy to get it into the QIF world. But then also I would say, talk to your vendors and let them know that this is something that you want.
Because it is an
often what they're looking for.
It is an ever expanding increase of vendors who are now starting to support QIF.
Yeah, so, very rapidly.
It's the landscape is changing, and so if your vendor isn't, we need to have a chat. Okay, so the next question: can you update the MBD information in the CAD file with the measurement data using the QIF file? So I think this is upstream, pushing QIF up back into the CAD.
Yeah, I mean, so basically the QIF MBD would be your CAD model with your PMI, and then you can have QIF results, which would be part of the same file. That's definitely possible. Part of the same .QIF file, you have MBD data inside of there, and you also have results data inside of there. And that in some of the videos that Narendra was showing, he was showing some of that where results were being shown inside of our MBD video viewer, but that's all QIF data there. The other thing that takes place, just talking about QIF files and instance files and things like that. The other thing I think it's important for people to know about QIF is that files can externally reference other files, and that's a key aspect of QIF. And what it allows is that you can have your QIF file in one location, maybe that's stored in your PLM system, for example, and you can have thousands of results files that are stored in a completely separate location, and you constantly have more and more being added to that other location, but those all reference your MBD file. So just in terms of data architecture, I think it's important to understand that you can have separate files that reference each other. Yeah, Narendra, what as far as results go, I mean, so what's some of the vision there at Schneider in terms of how you're using results and your experience there with it?
Yeah, for the results, our strategy is so all the information that will be only available in the QIF file, because for us, as I said, our value chain is slightly different. So we cannot store all the information, or we do not have any intention to store directly onto the CreoCAD, the native file, because most of our suppliers are working only on the neutral file. So we do not share that the native files which contains all sensitive information most of the time. So our vision is just to save all the information that, like I showed, on the QIF file itself, because QIF allows to store all the measurement data sets there, not only once, but if we have a revision of the part, so we can store from the beginning until the end of the life of the part itself. So because the part can sustain for 10 years, 15 years, but QIF allows that kind of iterations, revisions that can be managed pretty well in the QIF. So our vision is to store the data into the QIF file itself.
Okay, this will be the last questions. We only have about 3 minutes left. Once people start getting used to MBD, does some of the resistance to MBD start to disappear?
Yes, in fact, I can give my perspective, because beginning of this year we started working with our business stakeholders, and at the beginning they were quite puzzled with what is the MBD itself, because what changes it will bring to them. And when we started talking about the pilot that we executed last year, and when we talked about that, gradually they started understanding what is the value it is bringing to them and how productive it is. So all these aspects needs to be converted properly, and I think the resistance is disappearing gradually from that. That's what we have witnessed.
Well, good. Thank you very much. This concludes today's coffee chat. Just a reminder again that next month, June 22nd, we'll be doing reporting with QIF and Modus charts by Renishaw. You can find the registration links at QIFstandards.org. And thank you very much for your participation today, and some very great questions. We appreciate your active participation. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Rick.